Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Lara, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mansour, Mendoza, Miller, Mitchell, Monning, Morrell, Nestande, Nielsen, Norby, Olson, Pan, Perea, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Swanson, Torres, Valadeo, Wagner, Wykowski, Williams, Yamada, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, members, we have a lot of work to do this week. We're going to, as soon as we get a quorum, we are going to do the prayer, the pledge, procedural motions, and then we're going to start at the top of the file. If you are not here, I'm going to pass and retain your bill. This week, we are going to try to take up bills before, and hopefully before Friday, so we could not be here on Friday, but that means members have to take up their bills. Starting tomorrow, if I pass your bill twice, your bill will go to the inactive file. So members, if you could take your bills up. Staff members who are listening, please have your members take up their bills as soon as possible, or they could go to the inactive file this week. Thank you. Okay, we have a quorum. We ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. We ask our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papadimos, to offer the day's prayer.
Good afternoon. Let us pray. Lord, most of the time, it's not the big things that keep us from you, it's the small things, bad habits, or even carelessness. Lord, help us to let go of anything that would keep us from your blessings. Help us to be a person of excellence and integrity, to treat others with respect and kindness, and to be determined to live a life that pleases you. Amen.
We ask our guests and visitors to remain standing and join us for the flag salute. Please join Assemblymember Mansour as he leads us in the pledge. Mr. Mansour.
Thank you. Please place your hand over your heart and join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Friday, May 27, 2011. The Assembly met at 9 a.m. Honorable Fiona Moss, Speaker Pro Tem of the Assembly, presiding. Chief Clerk E. Dawson Wilson at the desk. Reading Clerk Timothy Moreland. Reading. The roll was called. Ashajian, Alejo, Allen, Amiano, Atkins, Bell, Berry Hill, Block, Bonilla, Bradford, Brownlee.
Mr. Allen moves and Ms. Conway seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the Governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions, the absences for the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Mr. Allen.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 to allow Assemblymember Pan to have guests and photographers on the floor.
Without objection.
At the request of Mr. Hageman, please remove file item AB 1369.
Without objection, clerk will note.
Pursuant to Assembly Rule 78, and at the request of the author, I'm giving a one-day notice of intent to remove file item A3, AB 353, Cedillo, from the inactive file.
Without objection, clerk will note.
At the request of the author, I request reconsideration on file item 129, AB 64, Jeffries. If consideration is granted pursuant to Assembly Rule 97, I request unanimous consent to re-refer AB 64 Jeffries from the third reading to the Rules Committee.
Reconsideration is granted on file item 129. Without objection, clerk will note. And now it is referred to third reading in the Rules Committee. Okay, on behalf of Assemblywoman Conway, we would like to welcome visitors from the Sundial Elementary School in Tulare. Sundial Elementary School from Tulare. Business on the daily file, second reading, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2, 5, 9, 18, 25, 38, 43, 47, 56, 69, 124, 131, 149, 152, 322, 335, 359, 372, 374, 375, 391, 395, 402, 410, 412, 415, 436, 438, 468, 469, 153, 160, 165, 172, 187, 189, 210, 224, 242, 250, 291, 292, 296, 306, 308, 316, 484, 493, 503, 505, 509, 516, 528, 532, 581, 589, 591, 610, 618, 620, 622, 625, 639, 646, 678, 685, 692, 696, 714, 727, 743, 750, 752, 764, 767, 790, 792, 809, 815, 823, 839, 852, 861, 862, 877, 882, 889, 898, 901, 906, 916, 922, 959, 960, 970, 973, 989, 1034, 1050, 1053, 1056, 1059, 1072, 1088, 1095, 1112, 1117, 1121, 1143, 1150, 1156, 1162, 1167, 1214, 1215, 1229, 1244, 1296, 1299, 1302, 1310, 1313, 1320, 1330, 1344, 1379, and Assembly Bill 1387.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Mr. Allen.
Yes, Madam Speaker. At the request of the author, please send file item 7, AB 43 Monning to the inactive file.
Without objection, clerk will. Okay, members, I still see a bunch of keys out. So in about 2 minutes, I'm going to start at the top of the third reading file, and we're going to go in order. As I mentioned, starting tomorrow, if you are not ready to take up your bill, yet you said you were ready to take it up, we are going to pass on file. If we pass twice on file, we're going to put your bill on the inactive file, and it will be a 2-year bill. So what we're saying is, please take up your bills as soon as they are ready, today, tomorrow, and Thursday, and hopefully we can finish by Thursday. Okay, we have some other guests who have joined us. We'd like to welcome the 8th grade students and parents from Bransford Middle School in Santa Cruz. That school is represented by Assembly Member Alejo. I'm sorry. Represented by Mr. Monning as well. Assembly Members Monning and Alejo. Okay, we are going to start at the top of the third reading file, Assembly third reading file. File items 131 through 134, pass and retain. File item 135, AB 294, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 294 by Assemblymember Portantino, an act relating to transportation.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 294 will allow the California Department of Transportation to award 5 additional design sequencing contracts for transportation projects through January 1st, 2015. The bill requires a report to the legislature describing and evaluating the outcome of the contracts undertaken pursuant to those provisions. The bill has received no votes and was only removed from the consent calendar to adopt technical amendments last week. AB 294 will provide Caltrans with additional flexibility and provide the legislature with important data regarding design sequencing methods. And I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, no 0. Measure passes. File items 136 through 140, pass and retain. File item 141 on the amendments, AB 1212. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1212 with amendments by Assemblymember Mansour.
Mr. Mansour.
Thank you. Madam Speaker and members, I rise to take AB 1212 up for the purpose of amendments that would allow the South Coast Air Quality Management District to create a benefit plan for new hires that differs from existing benefit plans with approval from the board and with approval from existing bargaining units. These amendments do not make any other underlying changes to the approval process and applies only to South Coast AQMD. This bill had full bipartisan support in the PERS Committee. I urge and I vote. Thank you.
Seeing and hearing none, and without objection, we will take a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted, out to print and back on file. File items 142 to 147, pass and retain. File item 148, AB 1136. On the amendments, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1136 with amendments by Assemblymember Swanson.
Mr. Swanson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For amendments, AB 1136, hospital lift teams. AB 1136 will help increase the safety and health care of workers and their patients by requiring hospitals to implement a safe patients handling policy. The amendments that we offer today remove the provisions that require hospitals to purchase enough lifting equipment to eliminate manual patient handling and transfers by January 1, 2013. Deletes provisions that require all hospitals after January 1, 2013 to document each use of a manual lift. Specify that lift team members may perform other duties as assigned during their shift, and specifies that the use of the safe patient handling policy must be appropriate for the specific patient. I ask for your aye vote on these amendments.
Seeing and hearing no objections, we will take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted, out to print and back on file. File item 149, AB 1396. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1396 by the Assembly Committee on Labor and Employment, an act relating to employment.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes, Madam Speaker, AB 1396 clarifies that all commission contracts must be in writing. Common sense measure. This written contract requirement is not only consistent with best business practices, but serves to protect both employees and employers who avoid disputes regarding commission and compensation, thereby providing avoiding costly and timely court cases. With the recent amendments, the California Chamber of Commerce and the Civil Justice Association of California have removed their opposition to the bill, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 23. Measure passes. File items 150 and 151 pass and retain. File item 152, AB 515. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 515 by Assemblymember Brownlee, an act relating to community colleges.
Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I present to you today AB 515, a community college bill that will provide access to students who currently do not have access to the classes they so desperately need today by offering extension classes for credit like the UC and the CSU systems already do. Community colleges have experienced over $1 billion in cuts, and we know that community colleges across the state are closing their winter sessions, their summer sessions, and offering far fewer classes during the traditional semesters. If you are a student already in the system today, you are not able to get the classes you need to transfer to a four-year university system or to receive the career training you need to enter the job market. Our current high school seniors who are looking to go to college today can't get into the system. And the research is very clear that if our high school graduates wait several years to go to college, they don't go to college. AB 515 is a pilot project that sunsets in 2016 and is designed to provide a bridge through these tough economic times so students have better access to the courses they need. This bill does not mandate community colleges to do anything. It is subject to all local collective bargaining agreements. The extension courses will be taught by existing faculty, and all of the reforms that the faculty associations have fought for over the years are included in this bill. The 75%, 25% goals for college faculty. The 50% rule that 50% of all expenses will be payment for faculty salaries. No general fund money will apply. There is no supplanting of courses and no profits for community colleges. Fees or tuitions cannot exceed the cost of maintaining extension courses. If a community college wishes to offer extension courses, their district trustees must take action at a publicly noticed meeting in order to do so. If a community college does decide to offer extension courses, then their district board of trustees will be required to certify compliance of the program again at a publicly noticed meeting every year. And they must collect detailed and rich data over the life of the pilot to evaluate the program. The Chancellor's Office will also have a second pair of eyes, if you will, with its own annual oversight to ensure the strictest compliance with the intent of the bill. Madam Speaker, can I get the attention of the Chamber? Thank you. Financial aid, both Pell Grants and Cal Grants, must be available to students to take advantage of the program. Financial aid students will receive the same priority as students who are not receiving financial aid. Governing boards will be required to develop policies to waive fees to ensure access for students regardless of their financial ability to pay. Let's just take an example of what a classroom might look like in a community college under this extension course proposal. Students would be in who pay for the cost of the class. Students would use Pell Grants or Cal Grants for the cost of the class. Students in the class would pay the $36 a unit. Students who use Pell Grants or Cal Grants to pay the $36 a unit in the community college. And finally, students whose fees may have been waived altogether because they do not have the ability to pay. And finally, this bill would limit students to 12 units per semester and would be limited to a total of 24 units that could apply to an associate or transfer degree. AB 515 is a pilot project that will provide all students with access to community college courses, regardless of their background, at a time when their need is greater than it has ever been before, and that time is now. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this important measure.
Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise as a co-author of this bill with our colleague from Santa Monica. This bill simply provides a way for community colleges to meet the demands of their communities and increases access during the difficult budget times. We have all heard from our constituents and the overcrowdedness in our community colleges, with not only students who are trying to get in, but individuals who have lost their jobs and are looking at our community colleges for retraining. This bill would help provide greater flexibility and greater accessibility to our community colleges. In fact, one of the community colleges in my district conducts an annual survey, annual student survey, and over 25%, over a quarter of the students willingly said they would take these type of classes even if the cost exceeded close to $200 per unit. Now, obviously, that's not going to hit those levels, but it shows the demand. Without these courses, many students will end up turning to proprietary colleges, which cost substantially more than similar courses offered under the AB 515 model, and those colleges spend much lower percentage of expenses on instruction. This bill, while I know there's had a lot of debate on the bill, both in committee, policy and fiscal committee, but the bottom line is this bill increases access to community colleges without increasing funding, general fund costs. And that's an important goal, that we're able to do that under these current times. So let me just repeat that one more time, that it increases access without increasing general fund costs. I ask for an aye vote.
Ms. Harkey.
I have two questions of the author, please.
Without objection.
We supported this in committee, and there were amendments taken on 52711, and one of the amendments we believe is a problem that may prevent these from even being established at all. It says that one provision prohibits the use of any general fund monies to establish and maintain extension courses, and another provision requires that surplus seats in extension programs be open to all community college students who only need to pay the regular fee to extend the extension course. Why were those seen as necessary, and without just doing the purpose of it was to kind of fast track?
Well, so the bill is designed to pay for the cost of the class. So every class is going to be slightly different, but that would be the fee. On average, community college costs are roughly $150 or $175 per unit. So the notion is that there would be folks who come in and pay the $150 or $175 a unit. There would be students who utilize their Pell Grants or Cal Grants and pay the $175 a unit. And then at some point you're going to recover your cost of operating that class. And all this bill is saying is once you recover that cost, then other seats should be available to students who are already in the community college system who are paying the $36 a unit, which it's going up to $36 a unit now, or can utilize their Pell Grants or Cal Grants as well. So that's The bill is clear that it will not take any general fund dollars, and every single class will be different in terms of what the overall cost is, but at some point there's going to be a cost break-even point, and at that point we would want other students to have equal access to those seats.
Okay, on my own time. I'm conflicted on this because of the late amendments. I think overall it's generally a good thing to extend what we need right now, which is options to the community college system. My problem is that if we don't allow them to match with some of the general funds, I'm very concerned with community colleges not getting the funding that they need. They need funding right now. It seems like every time we cut Prop 98 funding, we cut more from the community colleges, and I'm a very strong supporter of community colleges. So if I can get my fears assuaged, I would love to support this. But I want to be sure we're not impacting the community colleges that take up so much of the slack from children that really don't do what they should in high school or can't, and they come back in from remedial work for any kind of a career tech and 2-year programs. I mean, they really are all-encompassing. So I would like a further explanation. I'm not going to vote right now, but I'd like to hear from you later on the floor, and I might change my mind. But thank you.
Just respond to one of the last statements that she said, because I do want you to understand that from the very beginning of this bill, a major tenet of this bill was to provide a tool for community colleges. They can choose to offer these extension courses, but from the very, very beginning, it was not about community colleges making money. It was about community colleges recovering their costs to offer these classes without putting pressure on the general fund. So I just want to be clear that tenet has been in the bill from the very, very beginning.
Ms. Brownlee, if you could save that for your close for any other comments. Mr. Donnelly?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Yeah, I'm conflicted too. I can't say that I rise in support of this bill. I think I'm against it now because with the amendments that you've taken, you've made it so confusing to community colleges. I'm concerned that they won't offer the program. I really liked the bill when you brought it through the Higher Ed Committee. I supported it. I helped you get it out of there. And I feel like now it's gone into something where I'm concerned it's going to become a cost, whereas before it was very clearly something that the students would be paying for the entire program by paying a higher fee. And because they did that, they would have access and get through the program quickly rather than be put on a waiting list. And I like that model. I'm just deeply concerned about the changes that you've taken in the language because it just seems like we're going in a circle here. So I'm going to just stand by and not be able to be supportive here, but maybe if it were to be amended to be a little more clear and understand that the burden has to go on the students who are saying, I want to take this course because they're able to pay. It's not really about an access issue. It's more about getting people back to work. And I think that's critically important. So, thank you.
Mr. Cedillo.
Questions of the author, if I may?
Without objection.
Yes. What happens if this bill doesn't pass? Do we get more money? Are there more classes? Are there better work conditions for the people who teach the classes? Or is there shorter lines for students who want to attend college?
Well, right now we know that there are roughly 140,000 students that can't have access to the system. That doesn't include the students that are in the system that can't get access to their courses. And so the only alternative, if we don't provide some solutions now during this tough economic and challenging times that we face, the only option our students would have, and they're already doing this, is that they're moving to proprietary for-profit institutions. And mind you, those for-profit and sometimes false-promised institutions are charging students 3 times the amount that we're talking about in this bill. And these are students who can't afford to be there in the first place and are taking out loans and coming out of those for-profit institutions deeply indebted with loans to pay back, with no guarantee for a job when they hit the job market.
And can you answer for me, who does the work in these extension courses? You talked about the collective bargaining agreement. Does that remain intact?
The collective bargaining, local bargaining units apply. This is existing community college faculty, and many of the rights and provisions that they have fought so hard for are included in this bill, but this guarantees that we have a high quality course offerings taught by existing faculty.
And then I want to ask you, then is it the intent here that this positions the community colleges to compete better with the private sector entities like the Phoenixes, like the Brymans and the ITTs and those that are proliferating in our communities, and in many instances we've realized or have not realized the training, and yet it's drained the Pell Grants and the Cal Grants away from the community college system?
Yes, Mr. Cedillo, that is true. We know today that 60% of the Cal Grants provided to students, 60% of that money is going to these for-profit institutions, and we know based on 08-09 data that 21% of the Pell Grants in California are going towards
Mr. Calderon,
students.
Please state your point of order, Mr. Calderon.
Members should not address each other on the particular merits of a bill. Questions, of course, can be asked, but each member can either get up, ask the question, or can argue for or against the bill, but they should not address the member directly. This is not a debate going on between those two members. This is a debate going on the floor.
Point well taken. Mr. Cedillo.
I'm fine.
On your own time? You have a minute and a half.
I'll hold my minute and a half. I'll come back to that.
You can't come back to it. Either speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay. Well, in a minute and a half, it appears to me very clear why some people who supported this earlier are now conflicted, because it creates a common sense pathway forward to provide funding for community colleges. It's non-ideological, it preserves union jobs, and provides classroom instruction for an economy and a population that needs it, for an economy in need and a community in need. And so I can see why some people might be conflicted with this, because this provides universal access to the rich and the poor, but it does so in a way that's equitable, that's thoughtful, and that's productive. I could see why some people might be confused by that, why they might have some issues with that. But let me say to you that this is something that is not a mandate, protects collective bargaining. It's similar to the systems that we have in the UC system and the CSU system, and it avoids in its architecture, it avoids constructing a two-tiered system, and it provides us an ability to compete with what we know is a very robust private sector system, but not one that delivers on the needs of the community, the students, and our economy. I would encourage an aye vote.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm a little struck and confused by the idea that this is the way it's done in the UC systems and it won't create a two-tier system, and need a little explanation. And if I may, a question of the author.
Without objection.
I understand one of the amendments requires, or please correct me if I'm wrong, does one of the amendments require that when an extension course is opened up, if it is not filled, surplus seats must go to regular students in the community college who are paying the lower fees?
The bill states explicitly that if there are seats available, that they will be available to students on either financial aid, who pay the regular tuition, if you will, and even a requirement of the bill is for community colleges to establish their own policies about potentially waiving fees for students who can't afford the class. But let me tell you, in practicality, when you talk to your community colleges, they will say, we're going to put this class up. Let's say it's an English class or a U.S. history class. We're going to put it up because there's a huge demand on these classes, and we can't provide a number of classes to meet the demand. And if only a few people sign up for the class, they'll close the class down. They won't offer it because they're not able to cover their cost of providing that class. The cost of the class has to be recovered first. If, for example, in practicality, the community colleges have told me if we just miss the cost by some way, then they'll have to recover it in the next class, so that on the aggregate, the cost of the classes have been recovered. No general fund money, but seats available, because every class, the recovery of their costs is going to be different, and I want to make sure that other students have the opportunity to be in this class, so that it provides access not only for students who can pay for it, but for students who are already in the system and can't get through the system to either transfer to a four-year institution or get the certification that they need for a job outside of the system.
Thank you. And one further question of the author.
Hold on. I think Mr. Calderon was saying we don't want to have a debate between two members. How many questions?
Right, which is why I didn't ask for a debate. I asked for a question.
Okay, Mr. Wagner, you can ask another question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And last question, and then I'll go on my own time. Just if you would clarify, there are two rules that apply to professional faculty at the community colleges, the so-called 50-50 rule, requiring 50% be spent in the classroom, and the 75-25 rule, which is more of a guidance trying to get 75% full-time professors. What provisions, if any, does this bill make with respect to either of those two requirements?
Both of those provisions are included in the bill.
Thank you. On my own time, if I may, and
you have a minute and a half.
I will be very brief. Thank you. I spent 12 years as a community college trustee. The concerns addressed by this bill are very real, and the inability of students to find seats in the classrooms and the inability of trustees at the community colleges to find the resources to provide the classes is a very real concern. Nevertheless, as a former community college trustee, I too remain, as has been said, a bit conflicted. The amendments, I think, do weaken the bill. It may not be the intent to create a two-tier system. It may not be the intent that one student sitting where I am and one student sitting where my seatmate is are paying different amounts. That is not the way I understand we do it in the UCs and the CSUs.
30 seconds.
I think we ought to tread that path very carefully. I haven't heard enough from those responsible for running the community colleges that the problem is sufficiently severe that we take that two-tiered approach. And so I am reluctant at this point, and quite frankly not sure yet how I will cast a bill. I look forward to hearing the rest of my colleagues.
Mr. Norby.
I rise in support of the bill. I have no questions at all for the author. No bill is perfect. This doesn't perfect the community college system, but it is a step in the right direction. Yes, there will be a two-tiered system in the classroom. We have two-tiered systems all over the state. I flew up this morning on Southwest Airlines. People probably paid up to 5 or 6 different fares sitting in the same seat. You can say that of a condo complex. People would pay 4 or 5 different prices depending on when they bought the condo for that exact same model of condo. So we have 2 tiers, 3 tiers, maybe not up to 96 tiers, but we have a lot of tiers and a lot of things that we sell. And the idea behind this is that the people are paying the upfront money to create the class, and they're getting the benefit of the class. And if they have extra seats, then the people who paid the lower tuition, whatever we call it, fees, can use up those seats. It's a step in the right direction. It means that these classes are now possible. Now, there are some complicated things in here, like the October 1st cutoff, which may not make this all that workable. And so this bill may have to be improved for its workability, but it is a step in the right direction, and I do urge an aye vote.
Mr. Logue.
Madam Speaker, I also rise in support of AB 152. I believe it is a step in the right direction, and I commend the author. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Ms. Brownlee, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the questions and the comments from the members on the floor. I just strongly believe that the current situation right now for community colleges is far more dire than any possible outcome from this bill. AB 515 provides a reasonable, time-limited solution under these tough economic times that we are facing. Please remember that there are 150,000 California residents today who are taking these for-profit classes. There are 140,000 seniors today who can't get access to this system, and next year it will double. Multiply that by 2, multiply by that by 3 in the next year. These are students who are not going to be able to access the system. I believe the freshman class of a UC system is about 50,000 students. This is how many students who are not going to have access to this system. The scale of the impact that others have talked about in this bill is grossly overstated. We're talking about perhaps a cost of somewhere between $60 to $120 million out of an overall budget for the community colleges being at around $16 billion. Folks have also said that this is a 2-tiered system. It's going to privatize our community colleges. Community college extension courses would be just like the UC and the CSU. They're not private. The classes would be taught by existing faculty and public facilities following the Ed Code. We're not touching the Ed Code here, subject to all collective bargaining agreements and open to the public. And remember, there's a constitutional guarantee for community colleges, and that's Prop 98. But without a solution, students are being driven away and don't have access. AB 515 is a pilot program with a strict sunset of 2016. The only way this bill would be able to continue after 2016 is a member would have to carry a bill and move it through the legislature and have the governor sign it. It's a bill that can offer access for students at a time when community college students need it the most. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Brownlee moves the call. File item 153 and 154, pass and retain. File item 155, AB 720. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 720 by Assemblymember Hall, an act relating to public contracts.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 720 will authorize a county voluntarily complying with the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act and the relevant provisions of the Public Contracts Code to take advantage of road construction flexibility options for county roads and highways. AB 720 will ensure that local governments are fulfilling the spirit and the letter of the law when it comes to making public investments in our local roads. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Hall moves the call. File item 156, AB 849. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 849 by Assemblymember Gatto, an act relating to water.
Mr. Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is a water conservation bill. It simply removes the patchwork of regulations that has stifled the installation of gray water systems in residential building and has resulted in some building inspectors completely ignoring the law. This will help Californians conserve water and also help get some construction workers back to work. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Logue.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill. I commend the author. I think it's an excellent bill. It's a great way to conserve water, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, no 0. Measure passes. File item 157, AB 912. Clerk will read, and it's support on both sides.
Assembly Bill 912 by Assemblymember Gordon, an act relating to local government.
Mr. Gordon.
AB 912 would make a minor procedural change that would help facilitate the dissolution of extraneous special districts. This is a support bill, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, no 0. Measure passes. File item 158, AB 689. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 689 by Assemblymember Blumenfield, an act relating to annuity transactions.
Mr. Blumenfield, support bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, consumers, especially senior citizens, are often losing thousands of dollars, sometimes their life savings, by being sold annuities, a certain investment sold by insurance companies that are sometimes completely unsuitable to their financial situation. The goal of this bill is to enact safeguards that will protect consumers from becoming victims of these bad investments. The federal Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act that passed last year states that in order for California to preserve its sole authority over regulating fixed annuities, the state must adopt comprehensive suitability standards for annuity sales by 2013. This bill builds on and in some sections strengthens the requirements set forth in the National Annuity Suitability Model and provides additional consumer safeguards to ensure that all consumers are adequately protected. I've been working very closely with the stakeholders on this bill, and it has passed out of the Assembly Insurance Committee with broad bipartisan support and no votes. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this important matter.
Ms. Grove.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand in strong support of this bill as well. You have an 82-year-old mother that gets bombarded with information from these kind of entities. I strongly support this bill.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 71, no 0. Measure passes. File item 159, pass and retain. File item 160, AB 420. Clerk will read. Sorry, Mr. Davis is not here. Pass and retain. File items 161 and 162. Pass and retain. File item 163, AB 938. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 938 by Assemblymember Emmanuel Perez, an act relating to drinking water.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Currently, when a community water system has serious drinking water violations, like exceeding the maximum contaminant levels of arsenic or nitrates, state law and regulations require public notification of the customers served. This policy clearly exists to protect the health of the public by preventing illness and disease. AB 938 would ensure that in the rare occurrence of a serious drinking water violation, that all Californians receive the proper notification about the safety of the drinking water in a language that they understand. Every water provider currently has to have an emergency notification plan specifying how they will notify their customers when a public health violation has occurred. AB 938 does not change the methodology that water providers use for reaching diverse populations. Specifically, this bill clarifies and codifies existing regulations to ensure these types of public notifications are provided in English, Spanish, and in whichever other language are spoken by 10% or more of the impacted residents, while also including important clarifications for informing residents where they may obtain additional information. My office has been working closely with water agencies throughout the state, and we have reached agreement on many of these issues. Members, this bill is part of the Human Rights to Water package, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 23. Measure passes. File item 164, AB 976. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 976 by Assemblymember Hall, an act relating to public contracts.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you. Madam Speaker and members, AB 976 would prohibit an individual or business that has been contracted to advise a local government on establishing a community choice aggregation from bidding on subsequent contracts that were influenced by their previous contract. Local governments exploring the feasibility of forming a CCA often seek the expertise and the advice of the third-party energy consultants to assist them in their decision-making process. While these private sector consulting firms can provide local governments with important information on the potential pros and cons of creating a CCA, current law fails to provide consumers with a number of important consumer protections. Firms recommending the creation of a CCA often seek contracts to implement the very project recommendations that they themselves were initially hired to provide. This clear conflict of interest generally benefits only the consulting or energy firm providing the recommendation and does not protect taxpayers or the rate-paying public, just as other private sector entities are prohibited from seeking. And so this is a simple bill. It basically fixes a conflict of interest item, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Buchanan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. This bill merely codifies what most of us consider a sound business practice. Someone who provides consulting services on a prospective project should not be allowed to bid on that project. In the Accountability and Administrative Review Committee, we recently heard testimony from roofing contractors about school districts that allowed the manufacturers of roofing materials to provide input on bid specifications. Too often, the practice led to sole sourcing and districts paying 50% or more for their roofing contracts than other districts. While I support our efforts to reduce our carbon footprint and expand the use of alternative energies, I also believe that it is critical to separate consulting from individuals or firms eligible for award of contract if we are to ensure the lowest rates possible for consumers. We also must codify this statement to restore the public's faith in government. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Swanson.
Madam Speaker, I simply rise in support of this bill. It's a good government bill. It codifies law and clarifies ambiguities. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 8. Measure passes. File items 165 and 166 pass and retain. File item 167, AB 1280. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1280 by Assemblymember Hill and others, an act relating to controlled substances.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 1280 puts teeth into existing federal law limiting the sales of pseudoephedrine products. Current federal law has both daily and monthly limits on how much PSE an individual can purchase. It also requires that products containing PSE are only available behind the counter and upon request. These restrictions were established to make it difficult to acquire large quantities of PSE, which is the key ingredient in the manufacture of methamphetamine. However, the current system contains massive loopholes. Criminals can easily move from one retail establishment to another, purchasing the maximum daily limit. Very quickly, they can acquire sufficient quantities of PSE to produce significant amounts of meth. AB 1280 would put an end to that. It requires California retailers selling PSE products to enter the purchase into an electronic log. This networked log, known as National Precursor Log Exchange, would immediately notify the retailer if the consumer was within the daily and monthly legal limit of purchase. This bill not only has the support of industry, the Chamber of Commerce, the retailers, and other groups, but also significant law enforcement support. The reason for the law enforcement support is that electronic tracking has proven effective in the 10 states that already have it. More than 126,000 grams of illegal PSE sales are stopped monthly in just the handful of states where electronic tracking is already in place. No system is going to be airtight, but I believe this bill strikes the right balance between the needs of the consumer and public safety.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I would like to thank the author for bringing this bill up. We worked on this last year as well, where the alternative was to basically ban the sale of these over the counter and have only prescription only for that event. That would have put a lot of undue burden on most of the residents here in California that use this responsibly and wisely. This system worked out with the industry and the stakeholders, allow us to go up and swipe our driver's license in a statewide system that will track to make sure we don't buy too much and that we can't use it for illegal purposes. It took a lot of negotiation back and forth, and I strongly support it and thank the author for bringing it up.
Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Yes, I too rise in support of this important bill. We've seen pseudoephedrine become a product in our society that is very helpful for some of us with the common cold and allergies and things like that, and then some knuckleheads deciding that they can create a drug that will go onto our street and kill our young people. So this is a proper way to go about this. This is a tracking system for pseudoephedrine. This is the way that we should track these drugs that have some good for us and some tracking for the bad guys.
Mr. Norby.
I rise in complete ambivalence, Madam Chair. On the one hand, this proposal is better than a competing proposal which would require a prescription for these current over-the-counter drugs. It's certainly more reasonable than that. But we should at least recognize that there is a slippery slope, and you want to decide how far down you're on and how slippery it's still going to be when law-abiding citizens who have colds have to go through such a hassle and be put on a federal database to get the medication they need. Even the most benign substances bought in quantity can be used for abusive purposes, whether it's fertilizer or other types of things. And we should be very wary of registries that can go on indefinitely to control these substances. I remember back in the 60s when the rumor was that if you used dried banana peels and scraped them off, there were some things you could do with them, and there were cities that were restricting those. And it is ironic that I don't know of any state law which limits the amount of alcohol one can buy legally in a liquor store. I'm not advocating that, but that certainly is widely abused as well. So I'll probably lay off it. I think it's better than more restrictive alternatives, but we should recognize that there are limits to how far we should go to regulate completely legal substances in terms of restricting freedom and medical necessity.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Hill, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, thank you for your comments, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 66, no 0. Measure passes. File item 168, pass and retain. File item 169, AB 491. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 491 by Assemblymember Portantino, an act relating to public health.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 491 will allow HIV counselors and medical providers to obtain informed consent as defined by the Federal Center for Disease Control. CDC informed consent includes information regarding HIV, risks and benefits of testing, implications of HIV test results, how test results will be communicated, and the opportunity to ask questions. It also includes the right to decline the test. If persons decline an HIV counselor or medical provider must document that fact as well. For persons who have positive test results, medical providers or HIV counselors shall provide linkages to care, and document information has been provided. This measure passed the Assembly Health Committee on a vote of 16-1, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 67, no 0. Measure passes. Okay, I have an announcement. Today, Tuesday, May 31st, is the last day in the Assembly to submit amendments to the desk by 5 p.m. or before adjournment if an author wishes to amend by Wednesday, June 1st. Today is the last day in the Assembly to submit amendments to the desk by 5 p.m. or before if an author wishes to amend by Wednesday, June 1st. Okay, going back to the file. File item 170 through 174, pass and retain. File item 175, pass temporarily. File item 176, pass and retain. File item 177, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 71 by Assemblymember Huber, an act relating to the Political Reform Act of 1974.
Ms. Huber.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 71 seeks to readily identify who's lobbying on what particular bills and post that information in a way that's accessible to the average citizen of California. And it passed 77-0 last year. It supports both sides and unanimous support in both policy and fiscal committees. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 67, no 0. Measure passes. File item 178, AB 90. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 90 by Assemblymember Swanson, an act relating to human trafficking.
Mr. Swanson.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in support of AB 90, which will fix flaws in the law regarding human trafficking of minors. While federal law is clear that prosecutors do not have to prove force when trafficking victim is a minor, California law is vague. This ambiguity stops prosecutors from prosecuting traffickers to the fullest extent possible, and also fails to recognize the role that mental manipulation plays in human trafficking. While a child is under 18 is involved in AB 90 will change the standard of proof to a showing that the defendant, quote, caused, induced, encouraged, or persuaded the victim. This is consistent with federal law and the fact that minors are unable to legally consent to sexual acts. This important change to the law recognizes the fact that many child victims of trafficking suffer from significant physical and mental health problems, including post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and trauma bonding, which creates the same kind of confinement as physical coercions. These changes in the law do not create a new crime. It simply allows the prosecutors to prosecute traffickers under human trafficking law rather than pimping and pandering laws. The criminals which will be convicted either way, but we want them to properly categorized as human traffickers. These children are being manipulated and brought and sold on a daily basis in California. AB 90 will make a basic change to our state law to ensure that these children are recognized as victims by the court and our system of justice. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, no 0. Measure passes. File item 179, AB 91. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 91 by Assemblymember Portantino, an act relating to student financial aid.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 91 is a pilot program for community college students with financial aid. My seatmate is correcting my number, but it's AB 91. It is a financial aid bill. California students, and especially our most needy California students, leave a significant amount of federal financial aid on the table. Getting this aid will help the student and help the economy. This seeks to have a 3-year pilot program and allow the Chancellor's Office to choose community colleges to participate in an effort to encourage more students to fill out the federal form. In California, often students fill out only the state form and don't fill out the federal form. The problem is the state form doesn't allow you to apply for federal benefits, where the federal form allows you to not only do the federal benefits but also the state benefits, and it is a gateway to all financial aid for our most needy California students. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 69, no 0. Measure passes. File item 175, AB 29. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 29 by Assemblymember John A. Perez, an act relating to economic development.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 29 creates the Office of Economic Development within the Governor's Office and establishes its specific tasks and duties, including reorganizing such entities as the Small Business Advocate and the California Business Investment Service, CalBiz, into this new office. The idea of AB 29 comes from the Little Hoover Commission's February 2010 report, which recommended the creation of a new governmental entity to fill the void left by the dismantled Technology, Trade, and Commerce Agency. Last year, recognizing the need for creating a single access point for business in the state, I introduced AB 2734. Later that year, Governor Schwarzenegger established the Governor's Office of Economic Development via an executive order that is still in effect, but their work is not codified. Establishing the Office of Economic Development within the Governor's Office sends a clear message that California is open for business. AB 29 has received strong bipartisan support, is supported by a wide range of labor, business, and economic development organizations, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote on this measure.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 67, no 1. Measure passes. File item 180, AB 136. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 136 by Assemblymember Bell and others, an act relating to telecommunications.
Mr. Bell.
Madam Speaker and members, AB 136 is a bill that deals with speech devices to be allowed to be funded by our Public Utilities Commission. Since 1985, California's Deaf and Disabled telecommunication program had been mandated to loan equipment to all people with disabilities so they can use the telephone. But the program has not kept up with technology in the area of speech technology. As a result, some people with these disabilities are still unable to use telephones even in emergencies. This corrects this deficiency, and AB 136 has received unanimous bipartisan support in both policy and fiscal committees. I urge your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 64, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 181, AB 138. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 138 by Assemblymember Bell, an act relating to aging.
Mr. Bell.
Madam Speaker and members, this bill, AB 138, will help California plan for the state's 8 million seniors. We need a plan for these seniors now and use the Elder Index to allocate scarce resources more efficiently. The Department of Aging estimates this bill will have negligible cost, and Area Council on Aging will realize small savings due to efficiencies. Most importantly, it is one of the only no-cost, high-impact policies we can really make in this fiscal environment. For all these reasons, I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 47, noes 20. Measure passes. File item 182, AB 139. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 139 by Assemblymember Fuentes, an act relating to state claims, making an appropriation therefore, and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Fuentes.
Members, this bill is one of two annual claims bills sponsored by the California Victim Compensation and Government Claims Board and carried by the Appropriations Committee. It appropriates $246,696 to pay 45 claims against the state as approved by the board and the Department of Finance. There is no opposition to this measure. I urge an aye vote.
Ms. Hartke.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I also urge an aye on this. We don't have a whole lot of choice here. This is what it is, and we have claims to pay, so I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 68, noes, ayes 69, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 69, no 0 on the measure. Measure passes. File item 183, AB 140. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 140 by Assemblymember Fuentes, an act relating to the payment of claims against the state, making an appropriation therefore, and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Fuentes.
Members, this is the other companion measure that provides an appropriation authority for state judgments and settlements approved by the Department of Justice and the Department of Finance. It appropriates $232,000 to the Department of Justice to pay for 2 court settlements entered into by the state. There's no opposition to this measure. I also urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 71, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 71, no 0 on the measure. Measure passes. File item 184, pass and retain. File item 185, AB 155. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 155 by Assemblymember Charles Calderon, an act relating to taxation.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker and members, this measure deals with a huge gap in the collection of our use tax. It's estimated by BOE that approximately $1.1 billion of use tax goes unreported each year. And the reason it goes unreported is because it's very difficult for the state to be able to collect it. It's difficult for the state to be able to collect it because of a Supreme Court decision which has been widely criticized. In order for the state to impose an obligation on a retailer to collect its tax, such as any in-state retailer, when you go and buy something, you pay for it and they collect the tax on it. But in order to do that for a retailer outside the state to collect the use tax on behalf of the state, the court said you have to have physical nexus. And they define physical nexus as being physical presence. So now the question remains, what happens when you buy something over the internet and you come into California through fiber optics and you purchase something and you purchase it tax-free? There's a use tax that attaches to that, but the problem is we can't collect it. What this bill does is it provides a way to bring our tax laws up to date, and it will allow physical nexus in cases where there is an in-state affiliate that is part of the same reporting group for purposes of taxes, and when it aids and abets in the development of the marketplace. But this is not only a state problem. This is a problem for California businesses. It's estimated every year that businesses in California lose $4.1 billion in sales to internet retailers. The loss is projected to grow to $7.5 billion by 2015. Now, what does that mean in terms of jobs? According to a study conducted by Professor Parker from San Diego State University, 18,400 jobs are currently lost to online sales as a result of our tax code. The study estimated that these numbers will grow to 34,000 in 2015 and 63 in 2020. Members, we're not imposing a new tax. What we are suggesting is a way to collect a tax that goes uncollected. Up to 12% of sales in this state are usurped through internet sales. And so this bill simply establishes the nexus. It's a good bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm glad to hear that it's not a new tax, but I think what Californians would like to hear is that we're actually repealing taxes and making it a friendlier place to do business. It's unbelievable to think that we are here in the California State Legislature and we're trying to reach out and levy taxes on companies that have made a conscious decision not to locate here. And the reason they're not locating here is because we are overtaxed in the state of California. This is complete insanity. If California citizens and businesses want to buy something over the internet, what we ought to be doing is removing the requirement for the use tax altogether. We spend way too much money trying to collect it, and we never collect very much for the enforcement efforts that we make. I think we do need a clear change in the law. We need to make California a place that is recognized around the world as the most business-friendly place. And this law of expanding the taxation to companies that have chosen not to locate here is a step in the wrong direction. We need to improve our business climate. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Morell.
Madam Speaker and fellow members, thank you. Yes, I think trying to regulate the internet is problematic, and I do agree with Mr. Donnelly that this is no time's a good time to raise taxes, but this is another tax increase, and it is another reason it's going to have businesses and families, I think, fleeing California, probably for Texas. Thank you.
Ms. Harkey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm opposing this for a different reason. I quite honestly don't think it will yield the revenue that we think it will, simply because we're the affiliates who now post different websites on their website will merely disappear because they won't have the revenue from those websites. The websites that were posted on the affiliates will actually you'll still be able to access them just Googling or browsing. It's not like you have to go through an affiliate company that we currently have in California now, which are paying taxes to us to access these websites. I am very concerned for that, and I'm also, I think that last session in this House we actually passed a bill that notified taxpayers that if they fell within a certain range of income, that they would in fact be most likely liable for a certain use tax. And so it's just, I think we'll probably be collecting on that. Plus, we're now collecting, or thinking we're going to be collecting on this. And I think that the other bill that we voted on last year was supposed to take the place of this, so that it would in fact, we would be able to actually almost fool taxpayers into paying some use tax, because if it comes with your tax form or your whatever, or something official from the government, you'll more than likely pay it. So I think this is a double whammy. We're going to be hitting our taxpayers with the notice in the bill we passed last year, plus we're going to lose income from the suppliers or the people that host these websites that are currently paying millions into our tax system now, because we simply will, the websites that they're posting will not go away. You will just have to access them another way. So they provide like a host network for other sites that you can click to and move on to. But those other sites will not go away, and they actually won't be paying taxes in California. And we're killing existing businesses, as small as they are. Thank you.
Ms. Grove.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is just another tax grab, and like many other attempts to grab more taxes, businesses can and will act with their feet. Businesses in California that are affected by this bill will easily move, and most certainly will. Not only will the state not gain more tax revenues from this bill, but it's likely that their current income tax revenues for businesses will be reduced. Not to mention the jobs that will be transferred out of state. California has the second worst unemployment rate in the nation, and it's tremendous deficit that we're trying to fill, and it's bills like this that are only going to make matters worse, and I urge a no vote.
Mr. Mansour.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill and urge a no vote. Passing this bill is simply going to bring us new lawsuits, not new revenue. It's going to empower state lawyers to go on a fishing expedition against out-of-state companies that are doing business in our state. That's not how we attract businesses to our state. We need to reduce our fees and regulations, bring businesses and jobs back to California. That's how we're going to increase our revenue, not by being heavy-handed. I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Mr. Norby.
Madam Speaker, this is a very serious bill. I don't know what its fate is, and I don't know if I'm prepared to support it this time, but it does raise the issue of the future of the sales tax in California and whether in the long run it's even a viable tax that can be collected. When reality is no longer just bricks and mortar in Main Street, but virtual reality where companies can exist anywhere they want, collecting a site-specific sales tax is very, very difficult to do. The law is well intended to try to bring some fairness. If you have a brick and mortar appliance store, big screen TV store, somebody comes in, tries out your products, and then can buy it online without paying the sales tax, that hurts brick and mortar businesses, and that hurts cities and communities that rely on that point of sale sales tax. But I'm not sure if trying to chase that around the country is going to bring in the money. Point of sale sales tax is a serious issue, not just California versus Texas or versus the Cayman Islands, but city versus city. There are cities in the state that virtually prevent new people from moving into them because all they want are the sales taxes from surrounding residents who buy products in those cities and then go back to those cities that get none of the benefits from that sales tax since it's point of sale. There are a lot of serious issues here, and I don't know if this is going to successfully address them, but I will at least commend the author for bringing these issues up, because the future of the sales tax and its viability very much will affect future revenue stability and fairness in our state.
Mr. Nistande.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to pick up on Mr. Norby's concept, I agree that it is a good idea to address the disparity in our tax code. When we have a sales tax that is so high, you're going to have an avoidance issue, and people will avoid taxes that are too high. So I do think that there could be a good solution in lowering the tax and spreading it to everybody, as many people as possible, and expanding a sales tax to other entities if you are going to lower that tax to once again avoid the issue where people go out of their way to avoid the tax. So I do agree there's an unfairness issue for brick and mortar retailers, and hopefully we can address this, though, in the context of a broader tax reform. Thank you.
Mr. Perea.
Colleagues, I rise today to urge that you support this measure today. I really just want to clear up and talk about two things. Number one, this is not a new tax. What we're talking about here is collecting taxes that are already owed. The second thing I think that it's important to note is that California businesses are pushing this measure. The brick and mortar businesses are being hurt on Main Street because shoppers can go into their store, they can feel, they can touch certain items, and then they can go and buy it online and avoid paying sales tax. That's wrong. This is an opportunity for us to clear that up, and I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Eng.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I want to applaud the author for bringing up this bill. This is an attempt to deal with the root of a very serious problem, and that is inequity. It is an issue of expectations. If you and I were to go into a store and purchase an article of clothing or furniture, we will pay a sales tax. And yet someone else can go online and purchase that and not have that same expectation. I think that's inherently unfair. Remember, members, that the sales taxes go to fund local governments. And to vote for this is a vote in favor of the pleas that we hear every day from our local cities that don't have the resources to pay because they have to compete with these online businesses that don't collect, don't report, and therefore don't result in sales taxes. The second point is the colleague that spoke just before me is that this is a pro-government, pro-business agreement. When you have Best Buy, when you have the California Retailers Association, when you have Walmart, when you have Home Depot agreeing that this is a good thing, I don't know why my colleagues across the aisle would say that this is unfair to businesses. These businesses really make up the heartland of many of our local cities. So therefore, for these reasons, I respectfully request an aye vote.
Mr. Berryhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. This bill to me levels the playing field for those businesses in California. There's not a day goes by where I don't talk to various businesses that complain about their ability to compete. I have a good friend, has a sporting goods store in the small town of Turlock. They've been in business for over 40 years. Bought my first Stingray from them. It's pretty hot. But they are really struggling to make it today. And why? Exactly as my colleague from the southern part of the valley, Mr. Perea, mentioned, people come in there and they take a look at whether it's shotguns or whether it's other big-ticket items. They take a very good look, and then they turn around and they buy them online. The online were exempt from this initially to get the internet up and going. Well, I don't think there's anyone in here that doesn't believe the internet is now fully up and going. It is time that they paid their fair share and don't penalize our local businesses anymore. I urge an aye vote.
Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I, too, bought a Stingray from a small business owner, but it was a Schwinn Stingray, and I was 8 years old, so it wasn't quite the same thing. I wanted to rise in support of the bill, and the reason for doing so recalls work that our colleague, Mr. Perez, Manuel Perez, and I engaged in last year on jobs and economic recovery. Through that work and beyond, I've been meeting with small business owners in groups, trying to identify what we can do to help them the most. From small business owners up and down the state, time and time again, I've heard directly, you have to bring our tax code into the modern age because we're getting creamed. This is, as has been said by other speakers, a very concrete way for us to express our support, especially for small businesses. And by the way, this is not the only effort underway on this floor to modernize our tax code in ways to help brick and mortar. Ms. Skinner has another bill that we'll be hearing shortly that will complement this one and enable us to bring the equity that our colleague a moment ago stated is so necessary in our tax code. Urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Calderon, you may close.
Well, I heard this bill referred to as idiotic. So let's examine where the idiots are. First of all, this bill does not deal in any way with affiliates. Has nothing to do with affiliates. That's Ms. Skinner's bill. So let's get that clear. Moreover, if you oppose this bill, you support tax evasion and you're anti-business. Anti-business. A study, as I quoted from earlier, from a professor at the University of San Diego, 18,000 jobs currently are lost in California because of the failure to collect this use tax and the advantage that it gives out-of-state retailers. And that number is going to jump to 34,000. And this is not a tax. A tax is already on the books. But if you say this is a tax, then you are probably of that school of thought that we shouldn't even allow people in this state to decide if they want to tax themselves. So, if we want to create jobs, if we want to prevent future taxes, then we need to create ways to collect all taxes that are owed and other ways to be able to keep jobs in California. If you look at your analysis, not one California business, not one California business opposes this bill. In fact, it's opposite. They support it. So when you stand up and you talk about California being anti-business, when you stand up and talk about the unemployment rate being high in California, And you're saying we need to do something about it by voting against this bill. Who are you talking to? Because you're not talking to the people who elected you. This bill makes sense. Our laws were enacted in the 30s. Never anticipated the internet or the impact of the internet. And now we have to adjust the way we enforce our laws in order to be able to collect the taxes that are due and to save California businesses and save California jobs. I ask you, members, to vote with every business in this state. Every business that support this bill. I ask for an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 47, noes 16. Measure passes. File item 186, pass and retain. File item 187, AB 203. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 203 by Assemblymember Brownlee, an act relating to school intervention.
Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Last year, Governor Schwarzenegger signed a bill to establish the Parent Empowerment Program. The State Board of Education has been attempting to develop the appropriate regulations, and it's been rather challenging, but they continue to work on those regulations. This bill complements that process and is a vehicle to codify issues that need to be in statute or address issues that cannot be done through regulations. Among other things, the bill includes clarification of who may sign a petition and asks the Department of Education to post information regarding the petition process on its website. I've been working with a number of stakeholders that include the state PTA, public advocates, the California School Boards Association, and others on drafting this bill. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 23. Measure passes. File item 188, AB 216. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 216 by Assemblymember Swanson, an act relating to community colleges.
Mr. Swanson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 216 is a bill designed to help reduce our recidivism rate and help us employ education in our reentry strategy. Based on a finding by the 2008 LAA report on educational opportunities in prison, LAO recommends that the strengthening of inmate education programs, which I believe will ultimately improve the public safety by reducing inmate recidivism, they concur in that recommendation. This bill that has received bipartisan support changes first, it waives the requirement that courses must be open to the public if they are held in prisons. That would be difficult to do, and allow community college districts to go in and receive reimbursement for the courses. Second, it allows community college to offer courses in correctional facilities to be reimbursed at a rate according to the type of course offered. And third, it prohibits the use of state funding for community college to supplant current California Department of Correctional and Rehabilitation educational efforts. This bill does not cost the state any additional funds, but it will help us with our recidivism rate, and I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Nielsen.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, I rise in support of this. Such measures are the real long-term answer to prison overcrowding and recidivism. What is not the answer is this mass dump of inmates and parolees into our communities as proposed by 109. That is a disaster. This is a long-term answer. And you cannot solve the prison situation and recidivism and criminality in the short term. It takes years. It'll take a generation. This would be a step in that generation. A constant in the lives of most inmates and criminal offenders is a family that did not work, nurture, and love them, and a lack of structure in their lives and education. And this would provide such an opportunity. Where there have been educational programs within CDCR over the years, they have generally been successful. At the least, you get somebody to read. One time I ensured that a parolee, rather than being put back into prison, was put into a reading program. Now, he was a pretty bad guy, but his biggest problem was that he could not read all of his life. This can help change that. It is a worthy bill. It is a part of the long-range solution. Keep focused. The prison situation is a long-term, not a short-term fix.
Seeing no further questions in debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 71, no 0. Measure passes. File item 189, AB 221. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 221 by Assemblymember Carter, an act relating to redevelopment.
Ms. Carter.
Madam Chair and members, Assembly Bill 221 helps to advance two policy goals. One, to provide housing for the homeless, and two, to put current bond dollars for work on shovel-ready projects. For various reasons, money from the Emergency Housing and Assistance Program remains available for allocation. This program provides funding for just the construction and rehabilitation of emergency shelters. On the other hand, the Multi-Family Housing Supportive Bond Program has a limited amount of funding remaining. It is in very high demand, with many worthy and ready-to-go projects in need of funding. This program funds projects that provide housing for the homeless and supportive services under one roof. This bill does not require HCD to shift funds from one group to another. It simply gives the department the discretion to make funding available where it is most needed. This bill was introduced last year as AB 2536 with unanimous support, bipartisan support. There is no opposition, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 71, no 0. Measure passes. File item 190, AB 229. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 229 by Assemblymember Lara, an act relating to audits.
Mr. Lara.
Madam Speaker, members, thank you. AB 229 will increase accountability and transparency at cities and counties throughout the state by allowing the Comptroller's Office to develop and implement consistent systems of oversight of independent audits and of local governments. AB 229 is sponsored by the State Comptroller and has received bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for your vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, no 0. Measure passes. File item 191, AB 233. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 233 by Assemblymember Hall, an act relating to taxation.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 233 would allow state taxpayers to voluntarily contribute to the YMCA Youth and Government Program through a tax checkoff donation on their state tax return. Unfortunately, in recent years, costs to operate the program and participant demand for scholarships have greatly increased, while donations to this important program have declined. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Logue.
Madam Speaker, I also rise in support of this bill. I believe it's an excellent bill and a worthy cause. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 71, no 0. Measure passes. File item 192, AB 239. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 239 by Assemblymember Amiano, an act relating to law enforcement.
Mr. Amiano.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Members, AB 239 is the next step to examine the critical need of statewide crime laboratory oversight in California to ensure that all criminal cases are handled fairly and appropriately. Specifically, AB 239 provides the California Crime Laboratory Review Task Force be reconvened for the sole purpose of making recommendations by July 1st, 2013 on how to best configure a statewide oversight body whose responsibilities will include implementing federal legislation or guidelines, overseeing investigations into acts of misconduct or negligence. Is this the roast? collecting data to determine root causes of misconduct or negligence, identify systemic failures, and make recommendations for preventing future problems. AB 239 seeks not only to improve California's criminal justice system through an increased dialogue, but also gather public trust. By reinstating the Crime Laboratory Review Task Force, experts from the criminal justice, forensic, and law enforcement fields will have a voice in reviewing and making recommendations. Thank you, please, and I ask you for an aye vote.
Okay, not yet, Mr. Amiato. Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 73, no 0. Measure passes. File item 193, AB 241. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 241 by Assemblymember Hall, an act relating to gambling.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 241 extends the moratorium on the issuance of new gambling licenses for card rooms to January 1st, 2020. The extension will provide local governments with a reliable source of revenue necessary to plan for the future. There's no opposition to the bill. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 194, AB 245. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 245 by Assemblymember Portantino, an act relating to child care.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 245 simply allows child care contractors to be paid via direct deposit. Currently, contractors receive multi-million-dollar child care provider reimbursements via snail mail. For child care providers, this antiquated system has resulted in additional days where monies owed to them have not been received. We all understand how important child care is and the devastation that it's been undergoing. This will help them by getting their reimbursements quicker. It will also save the state money. Let me give you an example. It costs $1.03 to print a check, but only 10.5 cents to use direct deposit. We will save money, help child care providers get the money they deeply deserve. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 74, no 0. Measure passes. File item 195, AB 253. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 253 by Assemblymember Smythe and others, an act relating to local agencies.
Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 253 regarding city auditing guidelines is again one of the series of bills that we're going to continue to see throughout the year that were brought to fore from the City of Bell scandal of last year. What it does is the scandal highlighted the need for the state to provide local jurisdictions with more uniform auditing guidelines in order for the state to better monitor the financial records of local agencies. Current law requires the Comptroller's Office to prescribe uniform accounting reporting procedures for all local agencies except cities. This bill, sponsored by the Comptroller's Office, would simply delete the current exception by cities, thereby giving the Comptroller's Office the power to prescribe accounting procedures for cities as well as counties and other local agencies. It'll develop a committee that'll consist of 10 members appointed by the Comptroller, 5 city finance officers, 3 city managers, 1 public auditor, and 1 end user with experience using Comptroller-created local government data. The committee will not be compensated, only reimbursed for their travel, and that travel cost will be borne by the cities they represent. Ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, no 0. Measure passes. File item 196, AB 261. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 261 by Assemblymember Dickinson, an act relating to taxation.
Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 261 does 2 things, and 2 things only. It clarifies current law by specifying that established prescriptive easements will run with a property even if the property is sold or otherwise transferred. And secondly, it requires anyone desiring to take legal action against a county to overturn a tax lien sale must first petition the Board of Supervisors in order to determine whether the lien sale should be overturned. If the board denies the petition, then a person could proceed to court. This bill has received no votes, and I would respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, noes 11. Measure passes. File item 197, AB 289. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 289 by Assemblymember Cedillo, an act relating to taxation to take effect immediately. Tax levy.
Mr. Cedillo.
Members, this bill continues to reduce taxes for those thrift stores that raise revenue to provide support for AIDS and HIV research. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 72, no 0. Measure passes. File item 198, pass and retain. File item 199, AB 339. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 339 by Assemblymember Bonilla, an act relating to instructional materials.
Ms. Bonilla.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members. AB 339 simply reinstates the statutory authority regarding social content review that was inadvertently allowed to sunset on January 1, 2011. This bill would require the State Board of Education to once again enact a process to govern the social content review of instructional materials, authorizing the State Board of Education to contract with certain county offices of education to perform the review, and allows a fee to be charged to the textbook company to cover the cost. Without this bill, local school districts will be left to conduct their own costly review of instructional materials for out-of-cycle content, social content. Not only will this place an additional burden on local school districts, but will also create the possibility of inconsistencies in social content from district to district. AB 339 is supported by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, and has no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 43, noes 23. Measure passes. File item 200, AB 341. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 341 by Assemblymember Chesbro, an act relating to solid waste.
Mr. Chesbro.
Madam Speaker, members, despite our state's major advances in recycling and waste reduction, California still generates 93 million tons of waste each year that goes into landfills. Local jurisdictions have made significant strides in implementing programs for the diversion of solid waste from landfills, and collectively, our state well exceeds the required 50% goal that was established 20 years ago by the legislature. Despite these efforts, we still need to find better ways to divert waste materials. This bill requires that by 2020, 75% of the state's solid waste generated be source reduced, recycled, or composted. We achieved the 50% goal by relying primarily on cities and counties. This takes a different approach. The 75% goal moves us away from that towards a goal that must be accomplished on a statewide basis. AB 341 also requires commercial waste recycling. It defines the businesses that must comply as those generating more than 4 cubic yards of waste or multifamily residential dwellings of 5 units or more. Recycling is a powerful fuel additive that helps propel California's economic engine. Cutting our waste by 50% has resulted in more than 125,000 green jobs statewide, and it did that before anyone knew what green jobs were. It's been doing it before green jobs were cool. It generates $4 billion annually in salaries and wages and produces $10 billion worth of goods and services. I ask for your aye vote for this bill that will both continue to keep California in its environmental leadership role and also continue to build our green economy.
Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I appreciate the author's role in this, and he's been very supportive in pushing forward with this. But I'd like us to relax a little bit on this until all jurisdictions have gotten over the 50%. There are still currently about 150 of those jurisdictions that have not reached that 50%. And when and if they do, they are struggling to do that. So I would say that this might be a little bit cart before the horse, and that let's wait until all the jurisdictions can handily make this 50% without the problems that we see today. and then we can move on. But until then, I think we are doing that one thing that we try not to do up here in Sacramento, and that's put those regulations on business and cities that they have a difficult time working through.
Dr. Halderman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill imposes a new tax. It's a mandate on business. The tax is mandated to recover costs. It also imposes a between $1.5 and $2.3 million cost to the general fund annually. I don't think this is the right economic time given our movement toward the 50% standard anyway. I respectfully request a no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Chesbro, you may close.
Members, this bill takes a fundamentally different approach to advancing the diversion level from AB 939, which is the bill that the legislature passed that has gotten us beyond 50%. It has nothing to do with the existing local government mandate, which is still in place, but that which addresses the 50%. This new 25% is a statewide goal and places no additional new burdens on local governments. I urge your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Chesbro moves the call. File item 201, AB 350. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 350 by Assemblymember Solorio, an act relating to employment.
Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill expands the current Displaced Janitor Opportunity Act, which was established in 2001 and has been working fairly smoothly for both employers and employees. Specifically, this bill would provide stability to workers who maintain and secure building properties and to provide flexibility for employers throughout California. It would apply to property service contractors who employ more than 25 employees and requires workers who provide building maintenance such as licensed security, landscape, window cleaning, food cafeteria, and janitorial services to be retained by a successor contractor. As you know, these type of employees can lose their jobs with little or no warning when the property manager decides to award the service to another contractor. California continues to have very high unemployment levels. We need to give these type of low-level workers additional flexibility and transition time. I ask for your aye vote. We've been working with the stakeholders, have adopted some of their amendments, and will continue to as they provide them. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Jeffries.
I rise in opposition because if you're bidding on a contract to do janitorial or window cleaning or whatever it is because the building owner or somebody has put it up for a new bid and you're going to bid on that, how do you know what to bid? Because if you're the successful bidder over the previous one and you didn't plan to absorb all the employees of the previous business who were working in that building, you have just bankrupted your own business by winning the contract. So then you have to, as a bidder, turn around and bid what your price should be and then guesstimate what the cost would be to hire all of those employees who are now working for the other company in that building and pay their wages even though you don't know what it is. So that would put your bid over the top and probably cause you to lose the bid. So you're in a no-win scenario if you're trying to have competition deliver the best prices. I encourage a no vote.
Mr. Swanson.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill. It really is a common sense bill, and business practices now take into account provisions like this. It makes for a successful transfer. It's a compassionate and a humanitarian way to approach the workforce, making sure that there's some consistency and that they have some knowledge about the status of their future employment. This makes tremendous sense, and I ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Cedillo.
Question of the author.
Without objection.
How do you distinguish this bill from AB 515, which protects the jobs of the teachers and the janitors and all the people who work at the facility and the plant?
Very similar provisions, and again, this is also based off of a bill from 2001 dealing just with janitors. I would also clarify, per the prior question, that the successor contractors do have a lot of flexibility. If they don't need X number of workers, they can reduce that to whatever amount they want. Of those workers retained, there can also be changes in wages and benefits. So there's a lot of flexibility. And again, there are other protections in law for other similar employees as well.
Ms. Grove.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question of the author.
Without objection.
Is this contracts for private business?
This would be for any contractors. So they could be contractors servicing a private facility or building or a public facility or building.
On my own time. So this legislative body is now going to legislate